Hello ladies and gents, welcome to another video, and in this video we will be comparing the Sony A7 III and the R6 video wise, basically the video features of the R6 and the Sony A7 III, how they compare against each other. So let's get right into it. So on paper, when the R6 was announced, the R6 looked quite the perfect hybrid camera with 4K 60 frames per second, in-body image stabilization, 4K 24 shooting at 5K and downsampling it to 4K, and Canon log, and on top of it the 120 frames per second at 1080p and 12 frames per second mechanical shutter on the photo side. So on paper this looks like a complete package, unless you want to shoot 8K. That's when you move up to the R5. But is that the case? Because the Sony A7 III, which has been out for 2 years, has been quite the camera on paper and also in real life. So we will find out if this can stack up against the A7 III. So the A7 III caps out at 4K 30 frames per second, whereas the R6 caps out at 4K 60 frames per second. So if you want 4K slow-mo at 60 frames per second, that's where the R6 takes the cake. The A7 III, compare that, it was released 2 years ago, can do 4K 60. The A7 III has in-body image stabilization. The R6 also has in-body image stabilization. So for handheld shooting, this is a good feature to have if you don't want to use stabilizer or gimbals or tripod. As you can see, I think both of them do a pretty good job with the in-body image stabilization, but I think the Canon one is slightly better if you ask for my opinion. In terms of low light, I think the A7 III is better than the R6 just by a bit. A7 III is all-round good video camera, hybrid camera, and Sony has been known for their low light capabilities with their A7S III line of cameras. So the Canon R6 caught up, but I think the Sony A7 III is a better low light camera in terms of video. Another difference is that the R6 can shoot internally 10-bit 422 C-Log, and the A7 III can only shoot 420 8-bit S-Log. So if you want 10-bit 422, R6 is the one. So if you want to do color grading without the image falling apart, the R6 will give you the better option. Let's go straight to the elephant in the room. Let's address that, the overheating. So the R6 overheats, no doubt about it. The A7 III doesn't. So if you want a camera for video where you don't need to worry about overheating, the A7 III is just the choice. The R6, on the other hand, overheats. You cannot get more than 37 minutes or close to 40 minutes continuous recording at 4K 24 frames per second, unless you were in an ambient temperature, cooler ambient temperature, or like cooler temperature. The indoor temperature is let's say below 70 degrees, or you have a fan right next to the R6, or you're using a fan to cool down the sensor. The R6 is not an ideal video camera for continuous 4K recording, and I mean continuous. You can stop, start, record. You can even do narrative style by stopping, pausing, turning off the camera, but continuously without worrying about overheating, it's still not there yet, even with the updated firmware 1.1.1. The A7 III, no problems with that whatsoever. Another important thing that may make a lot of people say that will hinder the claim that the A7 III is the perfect hybrid camera is the lack of a flip out screen. The A7 III doesn't have a flip out screen. The R6 has a flip out screen. So let's say if I'm recording this video with the R6 right now, and I have a flip out screen so I can look at it, I can see if I'm in focus and whatnot. The A7 III, you're probably going to have to pair it up with a cell phone, with an iPad, or need an external monitor to see if you're in focus, if you're recording yourself. So the R6 is a better option if you're a one-man band. Also, the autofocus on the A7 III is hit or miss. It's okay. It's not Canon dual pixel 2 type or level autofocus. The R6 has the dual pixel autofocus 2, which is a good autofocus. It's a stellar one. You don't lose focus at all. It tracks your eye, it tracks your face, it tracks the subject. It even has animal eye autofocus. So if you want autofocus, the R6 is the one for you. So regarding battery life, I think battery life is important. If you are shooting and if you're using these two as a video camera, I think the A7 III has a better battery life than the R6. The R6, I barely get an hour and a half of recording time, continuous recording, or maybe stop-start recording is probably close to 2 hours, but with the A7 III you can get it 2.5 hours, and the battery is pretty okay. So I think the A7 III has better battery compared to the R6. Another thing is the color science of the Canon and the Sony cameras. So out of the box, the Sony camera's color looks a little off to me personally, and maybe to a lot of other people. But the Canon colors looks much smoother and much nicer to the eye out of the box, and that's what a lot of people will look at it. Let's say if you just shoot neutral profile on both the cameras. The Sony struggles with, I think, the red color, especially, and the Canon has a much accurate red colors. That's to my eye, but you can always color grade and make them match in post. But I think right out of the box, Canon's colors are much better, and for that reason, a lot of people might look at the R6, and also the bitrate, the 10-bit 422, that helps with the color grading, where the Sony falls apart with the 8-bit codec. Another thing is the touchscreen and the menu system. So it's a personal preference. A lot of people say that the Sony menu system is not that convenient. It's convoluted. It's a mess. It's confusing. The Canon menu system is much intuitive. It has a touchscreen. You can just go through the menus with ease. To me, if you play around, I've been using Sony for a while, so if you play around, if you know the thing, so I think Canon looks visually better. It has better usability features, but I mean, it's a personal preference. It's subjective, so I can't just say that this has better thing than that. But yeah, on paper or by an initial impression, the R6 has better menu. The last thing to consider is the price point. The R6 is $2,500. The A7 III is $2,000 right now, and it fluctuates between $1,800 to $2,000. The price might go down, so you have to keep checking. So I think if you ask me for video, I'll still say the A7 III is a better option. If only it had a flip out screen, it would have been the perfect option because it doesn't overheat. That's for me, but for other people, they might not care about the overheating, or maybe the way they shoot, the overheating doesn't affect them, and they like the 10-bit codec and the color grading options and the Canon color science. So it will vary from person to person, but I think at that price point, I think everything comes down to price eventually. So at that price point, I think the Sony A7 III is a better buy even in 2020. The Canon R6 might be a better buy if the price goes down. If the price goes down to $2,000, if this was priced at a $2,000, or if it was a $2,000 camera, then definitely this would have been a best hybrid camera right now. But it's not. So, and if it didn't overheat, I probably would have given this or said that this is the best hybrid camera, or even a video camera that can do stills, 20 megapixel stills. But it can't. It overheats, and that's a bummer. So thank you so much for watching, ladies and gents. I hope you guys liked this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel and leave your comments down below. And until next time, this is Kazi. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.